Hello and welcome to episode 5 of WightWanderer's Disused Railway Lines of the Isle of Wight. I'm Jack.
And I'm Eleanor.
And today we are walking the Freshwater Yarmouth Newport Railway, starting here in the very sunny yet windy Freshwater. Now you've probably noticed there's been a little bit of a gap between the last episode we filmed and the episode today. And that's because this is actually the third time we've attempted to film this one. So we were here a little bit further down there filming this segment about 2 weeks ago, and a little while afterwards the heavens opened and got us absolutely drenched. That's why we've got the umbrella with us today. Last week we had to postpone because of illness, so hopefully third time's the charm. Right, let's crack on. The Freshwater Yarmouth Newport Railway was built in 1889. The only railway line on the island to branch out west of Newport to the sparsely populated areas of the Isle of Wight. The line ran from Freshwater in the west up the river to Yarmouth, and then passing through Ningwood, Calbourne and Carisbrooke before terminating at the Isle of Wight Central Railway Station at Newport. The line also had two other stations that were built later on. Watchingwell Station was built in 1897 as a private halt, the only other addition being the separate station at Newport, built by the company in 1913, which lasted a mere 10 years before its closure in 1923. Freshwater Station was opened in 1889, though goods traffic on the line had begun the previous year. The building itself was situated right on the roadside at the bottom of Hook's Hill. Sadly, nothing remains of the building today, but if we venture into the garden centre adjacent, one or two hidden relics still remain, including part of the original platform and this station signpost, which can be seen here in this photo from the early 1950s. Now, when the Freshwater Yarmouth and Newport Railway opened, the trains themselves, the passenger trains, were actually operated by the Isle of Wight Central Railway to save costs. But this resulted in a lot of arguments between the two companies about those operations themselves. And eventually in 1912, the Freshwater Yarmouth and Newport Railway bosses stormed into the Central Railway's offices and said, "Up with this, we shall not put. We are going to run the railway ourselves." Unfortunately, the Freshwater Yarmouth and Newport Railway didn't have a lot of stock, and the only stock they had was very outdated. As mentioned previously in episode 4, the Isle of Wight Railways have always been well known for acquiring hand-me-down stock from other companies. Not so much a tradition as a way of minimising costs. The Freshwater Yarmouth and Newport Railway stock consisted at the time of old four-wheeled wooden body carriages, a Manning Wardle 060 saddle tank named Medina, and an A1 Terrier locomotive called Freshwater, built as early as 1876. This locomotive amazingly still survives to this day at the Isle of Wight Steam Railway. Two locomotives weren't enough though, and the company resorted to buying a very unconventional third one. Once again we come back to the superb Isle of Wight Steam passenger rolling stock book by Maycock and Reed, presented superbly by Nell, looking glamorous as always. Now if we turn to page 48, you can see here the picture of a very odd vehicle. This is in fact a petrol-driven Drury rail car bought in 1913 by the railway and used on passenger services by the company. Now the caption reads, "Although a thrill to drive, what passengers used to more conventional trains thought of it was not recorded." As the line left Freshwater, it headed northeast up the River Yar to Yarmouth. This part of the line is an established foot and cycle path, passing through an area of outstanding beauty and biological scientific interest. The railway follows the river continuing northeast to the mouth of the estuary at Yarmouth. So we're now approaching Yarmouth Mill, which was built in 1793, and it's the last tide mill relic left on the Isle of Wight after the one in Wootton was demolished in the 1960s. The mill here at Yarmouth, now a private dwelling, is said to have had a troublesome past with the railway. When the line here was built in the 1880s, it crossed the mill pond. It is thought that this act in fact reduced the water flow, causing loss of power to the mill, eventually leading to its decline. Whether this is a true fact cannot be said. What is a true fact though is how incredibly preserved Yarmouth railway station is. now in use as a cafe and heritage area. The building pays tribute to its long-gone previous function. Yarmouth is the oldest town in the Isle of Wight and the second smallest town in England, which is notable when you compare it to its neighbour Freshwater, which holds a population 7 times greater but still curiously classed as a village. Heading over Rothwood Marsh, we reach Thorley Road, where the footpath abruptly ends. Now here we come to the first issue of this railway line, which is some of it has been reclaimed and is unwalkable. So we're having to take a quick detour along the main road and then join the track bed further up. A little further down the road, we found a footpath cutting through the woodland at Thorley. After stumbling across some sheep and hay bales, we rejoined the track bed heading east at Hill Place Lane, with the alignment west having been completely reclaimed by farmland, stressing just how rural this railway was. Now after the Freshwater, Yarmouth and Newport Railway split from the Central, they went directly into receivership, and they needed a USP, a unique selling point for the line. So they decided to revive an old idea, an idea that's been around for a while, and it's still around to this day, still very controversial: the Solent Tunnel. For residents of the Isle of Wight, the Solent Tunnel subject has been a hot potato for many years, with pubs across the island echoing to the sound of opinions on both sides of the fence. The idea, though, is not a new one. In as early as 1874, construction started on a tunnel under the Solent. It reached a depth of 150 feet, and then subsequently the idea was abandoned. The idea then reappeared in 1886, proposing a tunnel from Ryde to Stokes Bay. Of course, this never happened. 15 years later, the first proposition to join the Freshwater line to the mainland via tunnel was highlighted, proposing the use of electric trains as early as 1901. Again, this came to nothing. Finally, in 1913, the Freshwater, Yarmouth Newport Railway revived the idea once again, pushing it as a staple of the newly independent company. Their pockets, though, were bare, and with the onset of World War I, the plan was soon forgotten once again. Now, if you'd like to learn more about the history of the Solent Tunnel scheme, there's a great video on Paul and Rebecca Whitewick's channel, which delves deeply into the history of the subject. A little further along is Lee Brickyard, of which the cottage remains. We cannot find a lot of information on this yard, but the OS map suggests that many of the buildings were demolished by 1907. The trackbed from here to Ningwood shows little left of its railway past, apart from the occasional discarded railway sleeper. Just west of Wellow, the walkable trackbed stops, and once again we are forced to take a detour. At Ningwood, the railway alignment can be seen from the main road as it approaches the station, with the western edge of the platforms visible from a distance. Ningwood opened in 1889 and in the later years was the only passing loop on the whole line. It closed in 1953 with the rest of the railway and has since been lovingly restored, with platforms still very visible. There is one noticeable relic missing from this scene though. The road bridge which once overlooked Ningwood Station appears to have gone, and the road has been somewhat re-levelled to the surrounding area. So here we are at Ningwood Station, a rather large station given the fact that it was and still is a rural area. Now it's a stunning private dwelling and it's been restored, platforms and all. So this is where we leave you today. Next time we will be continuing the story of this line, tracing it all the way back from here to Newport. Thank you very much for watching as always, and we will see you next time. All the best, take care.
Bye.
Bye. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing to our channel for more content. Likewise, you can also support the channel via the collection pot link in the description below.